Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Alyssa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation today. Before I tell you about our guest and let her introduce herself, I have a couple of announcements, 3 of them to be exact. One is I just had a live event in the beautiful town of Collingwood where I lived in May. It was so much fun and the feedback was so fantastic that we are doing it again September 10th, live in person, a full day training and lots of fun on the trails, maybe the beach, depending on the weather, and lots of connection. If that's something that you're looking forward to in your life, to learn amongst some other people and certainly connect and have some fun at the same time, check out the link that's in the show notes. The other thing coming up is September is the next Focus Formula group program we'll be starting. It's a 12-week group coaching program that I lead. It's awesome, if I do say so myself, also because the group dynamic really facilitates a lot of discovery amongst the doctors and a lot of great conversation. And we roll through some really great content over a 12-week period, really systemized and really results oriented. So check that out as well. I am not currently taking any one-on-one clients, so that might be your next bet if you want to work with me. And the last announcement that I have is if you haven't seen yet, Jane is an amazing clinic software. They are one of the show sponsors, and they have a promo code for you called Rockstar Doc, which will give you 1 month grace to get to know the system, check it out, and save yourself some money in the process. I love the platform. It certainly changed my practice in many positive ways and given me a lot of time freedom back. So I can't say enough good things. Their customer service is also phenomenal. All right, well, let's jump into today's show. I want to acknowledge Dr. Kerri Elston Doherty because she has been a massive supporter of the show and never ceases to send me positive notes and feedback. And I've always been intrigued by docs living overseas, and I wanted to have her on the show to hear about her life and experiences in chiropractic. So welcome to the show, Dr. Kerri Elston Doherty.
Oh, it's beautiful to be here. Thank you. I think you give me more credit than I deserve. I just, there's some things that you say, and I just went, I love that. I love that. So I don't think we hear that often enough.
Well, the thing is, I love this show because everyone has a story, right? And sometimes I ask people to be on the show and people say no. They're like, they're not interested, or they don't think they have anything to offer. And I have to pull it out of them, right? So I love that you said yes. I love that you said, well, what are we going to talk about? And I gave you a nutshell version of what the conversation would be like. But, you even said pre-chat that you don't normally do things like this. So I want to honor you for saying yes and getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. But before we jump into some of the great conversation I know we're going to have based on our pre-chat, I'd love everyone to hear a little bit about you. So tell us where you practice, how long you're going to practice, a little bit about your family life. Like, who is Dr. Kerri right now at this moment in time?
Oh, well, I'm probably at stages of constant reinvention and obviously coming off on the tail end of some interesting last couple of years for all of us on this planet. Probably a few things. I get to live my life about 10 minutes away from a gorgeous beach on the northeast of England. I came over to this part of the world after leaving Canada, going through New York, then living in San Francisco, going back to school to do my chiropractic degree, heading to Seattle and practicing there for a little bit, and then coming across to here because I have a grandfather who's English. And, a bit of a slow learner, I kind of figured out, I actually have access to applying for a visa opportunity because I'm a descendant of a British citizen. So that in combination with a crazy girlfriend who's remained like this for years and a little bit of nudging and prodding from the universe, and said, okay, I'm just going to go for a couple of years. So 18 years later, this is where I've ended up. And it's just great. I have 2 kids, husbands, and, just basic boring life, but it's good and it works for me.
So you've been in practice for how many years then?
That'll be coming up on 23. Yeah, 23. Great. So I was a 99 grad from Life West, from the old campus before the cool new stuff started to come about.
And you are in your own practice, or do you work with anyone else? Do you have other associates with you?
I am in a very simple but satisfying practice that I started in 2018. It was just time as things with family, and I'd done great associateships, learned a lot, locumed an awful lot for years and years and years here. And it just came to a point, it's like, it's time. It's time for me to kind of do my own thing and just jump straight in and have not looked back ever since.
I like the simple but satisfying. That's my motto as well. And
It,
certainly a lot of docs can make practice life a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And ultimately it just robs them of joy and time to do the fun things they want to do in their life.
well, I think in fairness, along the way, I thought it's like, well, this is what a successful practice is supposed to look like. And trying to feel like, what am I getting wrong? What am I not understanding? Why does this not work for me? Because part of it is, my mom always used to say, it's like, yes, sweetie, you can have anything, everything that you want. You can have it all, just not all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep bumping into that lesson over and over and over again. So yeah, kind of taking a look at, well, what do I want to do? And where do I want to spend my time? And what works for me? And then discovering that, oh, it wasn't going to be a disaster. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, what I like to say is you can have it all. It just, you need to know what all means for you. And
Very cool.
That's the whole idea with Rockstar Doctor Life, is like, you get to create your own story. And it doesn't mean it's easy. It's going to give you more ease as time goes on, but there's hard choices along the way. So how do you define success for yourself now?
Oh, it's always that work in progress. But the fact that I can get up in the morning, possibly see early clients. If the sun's great, I head down to the beach and jump into 8-degree water and faff around with the seagulls for a little bit. I feel that I've got my time to get my head straight and make that time, and the difference that it makes. I make breakfast for my kids. We dance around to ABBA in the kitchen. Lunches are packed. I get them to school, jump into other things. Business-wise, that being able to kind of carve that day around. And that those are components in through there. I couldn't go to bed at the end of the day thinking, you know what? There was some really, really great stuff here, and financially supporting an entire family on what looks like some person's definition of part-time.
Yeah, I love it. You've created your own Rockstar Doctor Life, essentially, right? You've gone, like we talked about in our pre-chat, like life is the best teacher. And sometimes you don't really get clear on what you do want until you're really clear on how you don't want to feel and what you don't want in your business, in your relationships, with your health. And I imagine, life has given you those lessons along the way. So, you think about how you define success right now. Mm-hmm. And what was it like 10 years ago? Would you define it differently?
Well, I had very young children, so success felt like I was failing on any kind of career front whatsoever. And as far as that, everybody was alive and messy by the end of the day, that was a good day. Like my standards, really, it sounds awful, doesn't it? Because it's standards, because I was taking care of twin babies on my own with no family support around, and kind of going, you know what? I don't know if I'm getting it right, but you just don't. You wade into something brand new, don't you? And I felt like, I'll just, other colleagues of mine took time off of practice, planned a maternity leave. I basically quit my job as a full-time locum, closed that kind of business, because I wasn't sure where I was going to go and what I wanted to do. And I was either going to go, oh God, 4 months, can't do this, get me back into working, I can't stand this. Or I could have been like the full-time granola stay-at-home mom. I didn't know, but I gave myself that opportunity to find out. And a lot of doubts, a lot of insecurities, a lot of things swirling around. So,
this is a good segue into my question. Like, how did your life change when you had your twins?
It was,
because at that point in time, you were doing locums, pregnant, and then took time off. And from what I'm hearing so far is that, you decided to be full-time mom for a short period of time before getting back into chiropractic.
Well, you got to kind of sometimes see where it all lands. And I had no clue what that was going to look like. At least I was able to admit to it, and, very supportive family to be able to say, okay, we're going to find out. Yeah. Prior to that, success looked like literally long 12-hour days, basically living out of a suitcase, touching base with that thing, rented a place I think I never was, but incredible experiences. And the variety, knowing that I had the skills because of the way I was trained and cultivated, that I could literally sample anything. It was definitely dovetailing into me being, got my passport, got travel bug, never lost it. And that let me combine a lot of things and really feel of good service in a real niche and role that I loved and fit with really well. It's great.
Mm-hmm. So how long did you do locums for?
So I came over here in 2005. Yeah, 2005. Well, 2004 to do the board exams. 2005. That's another thing altogether. Just when you think you've gone through all the part 4 boards, everything else you need to do in the States, Canada, then it was, oh, you've got to prove yourself all over again. That was a definitely interesting story. Definitely challenges and setbacks. When you get through that, it's going to only be here for a couple of years, but I basically locumed until going through pregnancy in 2008. So 3 solid years of it.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
And you must have gained tremendous insight into different practice styles, honed your technique and your skills by that experience.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, like so many different styles, not just of clinical practice, but being at like business structures. Do you have associates? Do you have that? Loads of experience. And you kind of get to try it out a little bit. Go, yeah, that works really, really great. Wonderful model, not for me. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to take that little piece of that little piece of that. And yeah, it was just such a wonderful experience. And yeah, to be able to provide that to clients and different practices, and being in a position to let people know, and really that feedback of, you can go away and take time for you because you need to do that, and mm-hmm. you're in good hands. And when you come back, handing it right back to you, hopefully with happy people.
Mm-hmm. And so then it sounds like you had a little bit of an not identity crisis, but a shift, like which so many parents go through.
I would say identity crisis is right.
You have these little people, these children, and you want to raise them most doctors want to raise them in a healthy, holistic model, which requires a lot of time and energy and patience. And, it can easily push your business aspirations aside temporarily or create a lot of demand on a full schedule, right? And so some docs struggle and they change their practice model so that they can work a little bit less, so that they can be with their kids. I mean, I've heard everything in all these shows I've done. So how did you navigate the addition of the twins into your business life, and how you shifted, your mindset to being a mom temporarily before getting back into practice?
It was bumpy and ugly and rewarding all at the same time. I had to bait myself, literally be comfortable or less uncomfortable, I suppose, with literally starting all over again. There was no baseline and no framework. So it was, do I work in with an associate position? And the assumption is you work with an associate, certain amount of hours, but we all know whether you're working how many clinical hours, when you're there and building a practice, it's the same amount of work, time, effort, energy to build a couple of days a week versus all of that. And in someone else's practice model and coming in and joining that, there just really wasn't that flexibility to design. So I had to be patient with career, feeling like I was falling behind my peers. Silly, but true.
We all compare, right? A lot of docs compare their success to other people.
And feeling like, well, if I'd spend all this time being locum and changing and moving to different locations and that kind of thing, feeling like I didn't have an established practice to leave and come back to. So I didn't go on maternity leave. I felt like I was starting all over again in a lot of ways.
Common. I had to do that. I had to do that when my marriage ended. And I had to start my own practice again with a 3 and a 7-year-old and really find my way. And I think about it, I actually thought about just this morning, how where I'm at now, like I created all of this and I'm very, very grateful for it. But I remember the tears and I remember the stress and I remember the fear and the financial strain very vividly. And it is, again, it's not an easy path to get to a life of more ease. There's often some difficult choices that have to occur along the way. And so many parents struggle with that. So if there was anything that you find right now helps you navigate, your kids are teenagers now?
They will be 13 in a month.
So right now, balancing Dr. Kerri and Mom Kerri, do you have any rituals or rhythms or ways that you sort of shift hats that you're wearing, so to speak?
Oh yeah, this past couple of years has given us a lot of opportunity to do that. When you are forced, certain things you can access and certain things that you don't. I took a lot more time to be in nature and that quiet time for myself. So coming into the practice, just those little cushions of time, and to be able to playlists. I got really addicted in such a great way to Spotify and playlists and putting stuff together. Like, what do I want to hear when I come into a space? And having clients kind of like that environment, helping to create an environment where so much has been out of our control over the last couple of years, and bringing that back in and hearing clients who were not able to come in and then coming back in saying, oh, I missed that tunes. Oh, that's great. Oh, look at the plants. They're doing really, really well. It always feels really comfortable when I come in here. It's like kind of like spa lighting. Having that sense of humanity coming back, that sense of being a human being and all aspects of that. Like, it's not, does your back hurt? How are you?
Yeah.
In those moments, and being connected in that moment. It's been a real gorgeous experience connecting with
Find that helps you transition into your practice life. And then do you have something similar that you do when you get home and you can help you just focus on time with your kids and with your partner?
Yep. Everything just kind of gets shut down. As you talked about, simplifying and systematizing life, going over to an answering service and things, so that when I kick my kids, it's all about snacks and cookies and how is your day and what's on for karate and can you please unpack your lunch boxes and organize that, and just being there in that moment, which oftentimes looks like my son handing my bum to me in chess because he's a whiz and I absolutely suck.
Yeah. Something that's actually come up quite consistently with a lot of guests is the importance of just being present in whatever moment you're in. So present with your partner, present with your business when you're adjusting, present with your kid. And it's so hard to do sometimes, because if anyone who's a creative entrepreneur, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but my mind is constantly firing with new ideas, and being a chiropractor it's who I am, and same with coaching and being there for my clients. And it's easy for those roles to overlap sometimes. And without having boundaries and ways that I keep myself physically, mentally healthy, it can be easily overwhelming. So, when you think about your physical health and your emotional health, are there habits that you have right now that are key to, you feeling your best so that you can give as much as you give to your family and your practice?
Absolutely. I'm always revisiting nutrition, and I had to get really, really real about what it is that I need. Whether I like it or not is another story. But yeah, it was not pretty. But I need, at the moment, I am absolutely the most unbelievable worst date for my husband at the moment, because about 9:30, the kids are kind of looking at putting me to bed. I need sleep. And I'm just at that stage, call it hormones, call it whatever, that if that's what I need to be able to be up in the morning, to take the time that I need to start my day, whether it's meditating, grabbing a really gorgeous cup of coffee, taking a look at the beach, jumping in and swimming around in the water, or turning on some music, making that time. I had to really get very, very discerning about boundaries. And I had to find that balance between feeling overly structured and recognizing that a boundary and a structure, one is more rigid, but one is more honoring, and just really having to look at it. Why do I look at it that way? Why is there part of me that kind of goes, oh, and rebels against that feeling of doing what I need to do? And if that's what I need, like you said, sometimes there's going to be times when you just don't feel like doing it. And I will sit there and say to myself, yeah, but you know what happens when you don't? Which one are you choosing?
Yeah. And I'm sure we have these conversations with our people in our practices. Sometimes you don't remember how good you feel, or you don't remember the health habits that really work for you until you lose them for a little bit. And then you remember, you get clarity on what you do want, because you realize what you don't want, right? I think we said this earlier in this show. Yeah.
And permission to go, well, you know what? Yeah, you've let it fall off the wagon a little bit. What have you learned from that? the same compassion that we show like kids. I'm thinking, why am I so hard on myself if I spoke to my kids that way? And it took a couple of times of me pushing and pushing. Like you said, the mind is going all the time, like this idea, that idea. There's not enough time hours in the day for that. But when it starts to come back, when your children are getting older, and I won't say bolder, but being very, very honest and brave and saying right back to you. I asked my daughter when I told her I was going to be doing this, I said, okay, if you had just one word to describe me, what would it be? She's, oh, Mom, caring. You're absolutely caring. So that's great. And she says, and overworking. And it was like, if she had slapped me across the face, I thought, oh, I've worked so hard to be able to get that balance. And yet that's what she still sees.
Yeah.
Right.
That's beautiful.
And so it made us have a conversation. What does me being more here look like to you, sweetie? Let's have a chat about that. And she just let you have it, which is beautiful.
Kids are our best teachers, honestly. Like I remember when my oldest son was born, I thought, I think children are brought into our lives to help us complete our own learning circle, right? And to show us, reflect back to us so many parts of our own personality and our weaknesses and our flaws. But they also have such wisdom as they get older. My boys are 16 and 20 right now. And the perspective that, my boys give me sometimes and their observations, even just last night, I said to my youngest son, I said, you're very persistent. And he's like, where do you think I get that from? I'm like, what do you think? He goes, I've seen you over and over again. Be persistent. I'm like, oh, that's interesting that he observed that. And I said, and I asked him to explain a little bit more. And he said, when you're clear on what you're driving for, you make it happen. And I felt really humbled by his observation of that because he's pursuing his own dreams that are different than mine at this point. But in any event, what comes to mind is something I've been saying to my clients a lot lately is grace and space, like giving yourself, when you just honored that for yourself, you're like, what do I need? What kind of structure do I need for myself? Today, I need this kind of food. I need to go meditate. I need some quiet time, like giving ourselves the grace and the space to be who we need to be and understand that life has these ebbs and flows, right? There's times when our kids will challenge us and it's going to affect your practice life. There's times when your practice is growing and it's going to affect your personal life. Everything is intertwined, right? So when you think about some of the best lessons that you've had in life, because you said right at the beginning, in our pre-chat that life is the best teacher. Where do you think, where would you begin?
Well, it was interesting having a bit of review with this. Going through the immigration process in 3 countries, that is a hell of a learning curve.
Okay.
You get a little bit better with it each time along with it, but becoming a dual citizen was that kind of sense of, yes, see, I figured out the system. And that was that honoring in that choice. That was a big step. So yeah, it teaches you a lot. Being a chiropractor, falling into that career choice, at first by desperation, but then that feeling of, oh my gosh, this just makes sense to me. And then thinking, okay, well, I've got it all figured out, as we do in our hubris, that, oh yeah, we got it all figured out, until you stumble into other things. So for a healthy lady who had absolutely nothing wrong with her, being a 39-year-old who's supposedly healthy, but can't seem to get a pregnancy to stick or to stay, and nobody seems to know why. So finding yourself healthy, yet feeling like an absolute failure and about this big because you've been offered IVF. And you think, if you want to have children, this is pretty much it. And the humbling experience of knowingly, deliberately putting your body through a lot of chemical challenges, which was something that I discovered through chiropractic was not me. And it does really challenge, how far are you willing to go? And at what cost in order to have a certain outcome? And I wouldn't trade them for the world.
To say, it's probably given you, certainly compassion, right? For what our patients go through, and for understanding the choices for healthcare, that we can have the strongest philosophy that we want. And sometimes the body needs some outside help, right? And perfect example for you, and a beautiful example.
Exactly. And it's caring for the person that goes through that, because we can go through a lot of caring treatment. It's really, really influenced how I see people coming in the door. And I found myself using that in language. And, when your clients feed back to you, you didn't ask me about my back and my neck. Yeah, you got to that, but you wanted to know how this was really affecting me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really humbling experience to know that the difference that you want to make is actually really simple in so many ways. Like you said, you're a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
And to get an idea that I've struggled and strived to be much better at that.
Mm-hmm.
And then bringing those lessons from clinic, because it's easier in that forum,
Mm-hmm.
to bring it back to your family again. It's like you said, you get taken off in different directions.
Life is a series of experiences, right? That we can, I always say, look forward, instead of backwards. I look backwards to think about and reflect on things that worked and things didn't work. However, I don't spend a lot of energy back there because we can't change it. All you can do is keep moving forward. And life is the best teacher, the good and the bad, the ugly, everything in between. When you think about what's gotten you through some difficult times, so what would you say it has been? Has it been great mentors that you've had, family, resources, coaches, just yourself and your own, resilience and drive? A lot of docs go through difficult things in their relationships,
Absolutely.
in their health, in their business life, in their parenting. And I always like to ask this question because people are inspired by other people's stories.
And I think you hit on it right there, that I think the biggest thing that I found is just knowing that there's a safe space. I have to say, I've been very, very just blown away in so many ways watching women in our profession over the last 10 years. And I see colleagues of mine who are 5, 10, 15 years younger than me and thinking, yeah, right here, right now, we change that conversation. I will also look at, people like Sean, who's a bit older, and what I call going through the Margaret Thatcher era of women in chiropractic, where you had to be like the boys and do the numbers and all this kind of stuff, and seeing them soften and kind of go, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, I know I can do that, but how is that speaking to me now? What do I need now? And in their own way, circling back to saying, well, let's review this, let's see how we do. And I watch my colleagues younger than me, and then I watch my peers the same as me with the same things, and just being able to be there for each other. And that, okay, I'm going to send this one out to the hive mind. I got this, and this going on. What would you do with that? Yeah, you're on the right track. Just that reassurance that nobody's got it all figured out.
Nope.
And if they say they do, they may be in one area, but maybe not with others. Just that, not commiserating, but going, you know what? I'm not alone. People have experienced this before. And you know what? We're still here. We still create great things.
Yeah.
We still have permission. We have permission to get messy and get in there and just letting go of the seriousness of it. Yeah, there are times to be serious, but have some fun. I always count back on that quiet time to myself. I've been struggling with journaling, but I think I'm actually at a stage where that expression, another creative outlet with that. And it's that creativity. I knit, which has produced a lot of stuff around the house, which is great. I cook, but taking that time in the morning, that resources of what do I need, and not letting myself off the hook with that in my own voice has been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I love you. You touched on two things there. One is the importance of having your people, right? And finding your tribe, whether they're your in business life, with colleagues, with mentors, with coaches, but even the people in your friendship circles and your partnerships and your family. Like, surrounding yourself with the people who can lift you up when you can't lift yourself up some days. And I'm very thankful for, the people in my life, clients and friends and mentors, everyone, because they always see things objectively in a way that you can't, right? So I remind everyone, make sure you're cultivating your relationships in your practice, in your personal life, because your friendships are a determinant of your health too, right? And your quality of life. The other thing that I love that it's come up twice now, so I'm going to make sure that we talk about it, because there's obviously a reason here. And that's the idea of making time to quiet the noise. I did there's a sister podcast called Work, Play, Hustle, Heal. And I actually did an episode called Quiet the Noise. And I think it is so crucial in what you're saying that we give ourselves the grace and space to be quiet at times, so that we can actually get to know ourselves and think about what we need and what we want, or, you know, just even to get creative downloads about how to solve a personal challenge or a new business idea. If we're constantly learning and striving to get better, which is what so many of us drivers do, we don't ever give ourselves the space to let the information get pulled together in our brain, right? And that can look different for everyone. Some people, their quiet time is, journaling, it's meditation, it's a quiet coffee by themselves. But some people, their quiet time can be on their bike or running or moving their body some way, or just sitting at the beach. Or, you know, I actually like to do puzzles in the winter when it's snowy as hell here. And, you know, I find music on and I putter away, and it's very calming and reflective for me. So finding out, listeners, whatever you can do to give yourself that space to let your mind be quiet and do something that's reflective. It doesn't have to look like meditating, you know, for 20 minutes. It can look like a movie meditation as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My favorite one is probably music, getting myself, it's all of those synthesis together, great tunes, dancing around like an orangutan in a blender. It's just not good. And just that moment of the music and thing, it just takes you to another space with it and just lets you be free, be absolutely free with it.
Movement is healing. Music is healing, I think, too. And it's such a connector for people. So we've talked about a lot of things today on our show. We've talked about your evolution and how you've ended up in the UK. We've talked about parenting and the journey to becoming a parent and shifts in your identity with motherhood and business life. We've talked about how you stay grounded and focused. What keeps you still inspired these days to, you know, give to your community and in your practice and to show up as best as you can with your children?
That's at a stage right now where I'm having to confront that feeling of, so now what? I think I'm on the edge of looking at something like a new creativity, a new inspiration. And as scary as that can be, knowing that, you know, we all get stale with stuff or things can kind of go around in cycles with it. I'm getting brave, and I'm definitely being challenged, funnily enough, by a lot of my clients. Well, why don't you try it? You're always saying to us, how do you know if you don't try? So when your own advice and holding that space for someone else, and you see, it's been a particularly interesting last couple of months as our versions of restrictions and lockdowns, just different changes of life, letting things kind of play out a little bit, that people are coming back into, well, I'm so out of practice, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, get in there. You're either going to like it or not. Well, what exercises should I do? It's like, do you like ballroom dancing better than the gym? Yeah. Okay, guess what? That counts as exercise. Go play with it. Have some fun with it. And I think that inspiration is looking at things and having conversations, making that time and deliberately having conversations with people who wouldn't necessarily be my people. But there is that, oh, you want to find out about this too. I want to bring that back. I think we've lost a lot over the last few months of no one wants to say anything for fear of upsetting or offending or coming out on the wrong side of that. And I think I have to give Alison Asher the biggest credit to this one. Be curious, changing that language. I'm even seeing it. I had a lovely, lovely bunch of clients in today. He said, I'm curious. When you do this, what do you notice? And when you do that, what do you notice? And the different responses and engaging and someone kind of really coming out with just some fun stuff, really, really fun stuff. So that's what inspires me, getting a chance to just have a good old natter with people and get right up in there and say, what's going on with you? Great, cool. I'm going to try that. Never tried that before. What makes you do that?
Yeah.
I got together with some really great colleagues last weekend, 2 weekends ago, at the Edinburgh Lectures up in Scotland, and sat down with a colleague and I probably was like attacking the heck out of it. I said, so I've been reading a little bit of background. He says, oh, you've been Googling me. I said, so what makes someone go from wherever you're living in the Midwest in the States to going to study nuclear engineering on a submarine and then becoming a chiropractor? Like, I got to know about that. Tell me that. It's like, will you buy me whiskey? I will. I'm like, okay, you're on. Fair enough. That kind of people, just curiosity about people. People are fun.
People are infinitely interesting. And it's funny, so not everyone likes people. I think that's why I like doing this show, and I like having conversations. People ask me to write something. I'm like, no, I'll have a conversation, because that's more my jam and my style. And it's more interactive. And I'm with you. I mean, our patients teach us so many things. If you stay curious about their lives and build relationships with them, our children do, our friends do, other people, everyone is inspiring in their own way, if you can just settle in. And I think you actually nailed it when you said, like, there's been an opportunity in the last couple of years, as much as there's been struggle. And I'm in Canada, you're in the UK. I know you're Canadian at heart, and I want to also acknowledge that. But we're living in two countries that have been dramatically affected more than others in the last couple of years with restrictions and whatnot. And there have been some gifts in it. And as much as it can be continuously frustrating to have to fight for our freedom in different ways, there have been some gifts in awareness, and there's been some gifts in people reconnecting with some of the things that matter to them, and being able to control what they can. Lots of things we can't control in our lives, but we can control who we spend our time with, how we take care of our health, how we show up in our practices. And, that's something that will never stop.
It's funny, you mentioned practices that we do, and I didn't even think about this when we had a pre-chat about stuff, but I didn't realize it at the time, but it's become one of the best exercises I didn't even realize I was making myself do. At the beginning of all of this stuff going a little sideways, and us not really knowing whether we were dealing with, is this kind of a strange, crazy flu or Ebola we've got brewing on the horizon here? And okay, what if I need to do this, like a movie script with my kids? Do I need to build a bunker? That kind of thing. And I started writing a list. I started keeping every day. What is something that I really miss? What is something that I actually don't miss one bit? Not one bit. If I never had it happen again, it wouldn't even register on my radar. And what's the thing that I've always been curious about finding out, that if it all stopped today, what am I going to do the next opportunity? What am I going to try? And I've been keeping that list and taking a look at these different things. And so that when the world kind of comes back to all the busyness and craziness and noise, like you talked about, that we can all get caught up in, the challenge for me has been, no. You had an opportunity and you really discovered what really mattered to you. Now your challenge is hold that line for yourself. Be that example for your kids or your neighbor. Do you realize how many women over this have said, oh, well, you did it first. Do you have any idea? I was so, wondering what to do with that. And I just thought, I'm going to let my hair go too and see what happens. Who knew? I've never been a trendsetter in my life. And we lovely maids of mine who I admire and are just phenomenal. Homeschooling 3 kids when I can't even figure out how to get Google whatever to get going for them. Saying that I've somehow inspired them. So I think that's the thing. We always think about inspiring as something way out here or on this pedestal. I found the inspiration at, you know what? I grew a damn good tomato plant. And I can say tomato, and people now understand that I am actually talking about something in this country. That I actually like getting my fingers in the dirt, and I'm pretty good at it. Never really thought about it before.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great way for us to wrap up today. And listeners, viewers, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself that question. What do you miss? What do you miss in your relationships, in your personal life? If you have hobbies that have been pushed aside because life has been full, in your business, in your practice, are there things that were really bringing you fulfillment and joy and even more financial gain? There's systems that you had, for example, that really worked that you maybe miss. Ask yourself that question. I think it's a really powerful one. What do you miss? And create your own list, and then be able to go back and revisit it and pull in pieces of elements that you're missing to add more joy and fulfillment to your life.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for your time today. Viewers, listeners, if you want to connect with Dr. Kerri, you'll find her bio and everything else about her in the show notes. Thank you again for your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thanks, Melissa.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.